So I'm Chris Young. I'm the grounds coordinator here at Blandy. Of course, I'd love to welcome you and thank you all for gathering here to celebrate the life of Orfee Ross, a dear friend and a member of the Blandy family. Come on now. Keep it together. Trying to keep it joyous here. I'm going to do my best.
You got this.
Orfee loved Blandy. During the summer of 2022, Orfee was hired on a newly created position as landscape technician. The majority of his job was to string trim all around the arboretum, but it did not take long for him to start wanting to be more involved with daily tasks that his fellow grounds team were doing. Mowing, especially around our roads, buildings, open spaces that visitors would see and interact with first at Blandy, became a priority to him. Orfee blessed us with incredible work ethic and pride in his work. The spaces he took responsibility for never looked so good, and to be honest, may never look as good again. Orfee would show up early and would be out on his gator or on the mower within minutes. He was meticulous, extremely detail-oriented, and driven to showcase spaces around the arboretum by doing his best to make them aesthetically beautiful during all seasons. You would find Orfee off the mower, down and dirty, weeding caged trees, mulched areas, dogwood lane, or even cleaning up overgrowth on many of our large rock breaks. Visitors would compliment his work, which drove him more to do an even better job. Orfee would always say to me, "Blandy deserves to look good." Even when Orfee was ill, he put in 100% of what he could to keep Blandy looking beautiful. On a bad weather day, or once mowing had finished for the season, Orfee would be found helping anybody, and I mean anybody, that needed anything around the property. Orfee and I spent many, many days together working on roads, equipment, organizing spaces, cleaning, clearing of overgrown areas, and even helping me process firewood after hours. He always had positive energy you could feel when you were in his presence, as well as a level of generosity not commonly found anywhere. At different times of the year, all of us would find small trinkets, Canadian candy, printed out cartoons, little notes and drawings, Montreal bagels, remember, only the best. The most flavorful watermelons and squashes, homemade soaps, and many other items that were gifted to us. Every day, though, we got a smile and a laugh that would lift us up. Our regular visitors and members of our community garden saw Orfee often. All of them would mention how nice of a guy he was in the entertaining and passionate conversations they would share. Orfee was a man of strong opinions and views of the world around him. He was always concerned for the livelihood of people all over the world and the struggles they dealt with. There were many times when Orfee and I would solve the world's problems over a good conversation between tasks, and I know many of you here have had similar conversations over the years. I'll always cherish the times we spent together on and off the property, from trimming side by side with him around Blandy, riding along from place to place in his gator, which we have out here, sharing a good laugh during lunch, being educated about topics I'd never heard of, helping him repair his trucks, to stacking firewood on his porch, and the list goes on and on. These memories will stick with me forever. I thank you all for your time. And now I'd like to open it up. I'd like to open up to anybody that would like to say some words. And we are recording this for some of his family and whatnot, to be able to see it, because he's got friends all over the world and family all over the place, so we're recording this for them.
I'd first like to say that Brandon and I love Orfee, and we've missed him since last year when he first started getting sick because he couldn't come to work that much. But we miss him and we love him. So the first time I ever met Orfee was when he was coming for his interview with Chris Schmidt. And I remember Chris saying, wow, people don't dress up anymore for interviews, because he was in his street clothes because he just came from work, and I kind of thought the same thing. But little did I know, Orfee was one of the most diligent, detailed, hardworking people I've ever known. He never walked past trash on the ground, he simply just picked it up. He cared about Blandy and the environment. He looked at not simply just picking up trash or mowing or weeding, but he looked at it as beautifying his environment. He took great pride in his work, and Orfee and I would talk about how grateful we were to be hired here at Blandy, because it was the first time either of us have ever had full benefits in our 40s, and we appreciated that. And when it wasn't something that we wanted to take for granted, because it's not something everybody can get. So he was caring, he was thoughtful. He used to mow the grass by the compost pile for me so I wouldn't have to walk, and less likely to get ticks when I walked back to the compost pile. And I will miss that because it was awesome. We swapped stories about making soap and swapped produce in the summer. He was known for his delicious watermelon, but he grew the most wonderful yellow cucumbers I've ever had in my life. And I still don't know what that variety was. So the thing about Orfee, he was what he was. He never put on airs. He was an original person. He's what we like to call unique. We will miss him. He became our colleague and our friend. That's it.
I didn't see it, I'm sorry.
Wing it. Come on, Jared. I'll wing it with you.
Can we go get it for you?
Want me to say if I want to go get it?
Yeah.
All right, well, Jared's running to
Sorry,
get
Jared.
this.
I looked in Maine, but I
I'm
didn't
going to
see
say
it.
something short. I was the person that hired Orfee, and when everybody said it's true. He came across the parking lot in baggy brown pants, the pants he always wore here. A beard unkept down to here, and filthy. And I thought, he must have just come from work. And I thought, that's a worker. And he didn't run home to take a shower and put on something fancy, because this is not a fancy place to work. I hired him, and what everybody has said is the truth. Orfee was incredibly unique, one of a kind. The mold was thrown away after he was born. He had a hysterical sense of humor. He would come in and lecture to us at lunchtime. As I said to Jared, before Robert Kennedy was on anybody's radar in the last year, 2-3 years ago, Orfee was giving us lectures about the food dyes in our food at lunchtime, and telling us they were banned in Canada and banned in Europe, and he threw up websites to prove his point. He shared his produce with us. I visited his house a couple of times because he wanted me to identify trees in his yard, and he was proud of that yard. He had beautiful celosia. I haven't planted a tree in his honor, but I told Carrie I have planted a huge batch of celosia this summer, and it's all because Orfee was so proud of the celosia next to his gate. He loved animals. He had a multitude of cats, and I remember I used to drive home through White Post to cut the corner, and he was always on the ground at the fence across the street petting the shepherd that kept the animals over there. He was an amazing person. He did his work amazingly. He worked magic. He would, as I said to Jared, you can almost call him OCD. He didn't weed eat, he weed eated. Everything was always in perfect shape. And as somebody said, picked up trash. I mean, nothing was below him. He asked if he could come in to work early, and I said yes because it was cooler, and he wanted to be able to go home early on Fridays. And I mean, I drive in at 7:30 and he was out in some field on a mower already. I mean, he was a hard worker. He was wonderful to work with, and I was so glad I hired him because I thought he fit our team. I mean, he totally fit in with us, and like I said, I still have his mother's homemade mayonnaise recipe that he insisted I get. And like I said, he was a dream. So.
He's on his way.
All right, hey everybody. So yeah, Jack Monstead, same as everybody says. Working with Orfee was a joy. Attention to detail was like immaculate. One time, he had caught me driving a gator across the front lawn that he had mowed the day before. He immediately came over and was like, "What are you doing, man?" He's like, "My lines, they were perfect. You messed them all up." I'm like, "Oh shoot, my bad." To this day, I have not driven across there. I do not do that anymore. I'm like, lesson learned, man. That's absolutely fair. But yeah, where Orfee and I really kind of bonded actually here was actually over our taste in music. We found that we had like pretty much very similar tastes in music. We're both really big fans of like obscure hard bop jazz and obscure underground hip hop. So like those are like kind of like both our main lanes. And it's like so weird to find someone who's like so passionate about the exact same kind of tunes as you. So yeah, we had lots of really good conversations about music. I found out we have the same mutual favorite member of the Wu-Tang Clan, ODB. He's the best one. Anyone who says anything otherwise is kidding themselves. Yeah, we both play the saxophone sometimes. I actually went over to his house one time, and he was showing me, because he was like, we were talking about playing music. I was like, "Oh, we got to jam sometime." He's like, "Yeah, come on over. I have some instruments. I'll show you what I got." So I went over, and I'm talking about all this stuff. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm learning all these chords. I don't have my walking bass line just yet. I'm talking like Ball's music theory." And he stops me. He's like, "All right, that's cool, but like, I don't really care about scales. I'm more into sound. How does it sound?" And I was like, "That's a really good question. I've never thought of that before." And so he was just that kind of, he really appreciated a lot of like, just like the simplicity, like he had a really eye for like beautiful, simple things, and like he could really appreciate the beauty in simplicity. Like he showed me like he had all these different instruments. He had like 5 different ocarinas, a couple of stringed instruments, a didgeridoo, some things I'd never even heard of before. And he was playing with them for me, and like just the sounds that they make were beautiful. And I was like, yeah, like it kind of reminded me a little bit, like slow down. You don't always have to get so caught up in things. Like he was just so good, like just appreciate what's around you. So yeah, probably the one music thing we would kind of geek out about the most is we both have our favorite rapper of all time is Aesop Rock. And this dude is like, he has like very kind of like, he's a very lyrically dense rapper. It's the kind of music that you listen to it like 6 times, and then you're just starting to scratch the surface, a song. Then you listen to it 6 more times, you get to know it a little bit more, and by the time you listen to it 25 times, you feel like you actually know what is going on in the song. And so, like, I know that music really spoke to him, as it did to me, too. Like, we had a lot of discussions about it, and he pretty much liked every single Aesop Rock song he ever heard. Like, he had all of the albums. That was another thing. He would always scold me, because we'd talk about the new Aesop Rock album that came out, and he was like, "Oh, great, so did you get your record yet?" And I was like, "Well, I've just been streaming it on Spotify." And he was like, "What are you doing, dude? You gotta get it on vinyl. If you're not listening to it on vinyl, you're not really listening to it. It's not the same thing." So that's why we actually have the vinyl record player over here today. Is we're listening to all the music on vinyl today for this event. So, because I know that that's absolutely how he would have wanted it. But then there is, so Aesop Rock actually just released a new album the day before Orfee passed. And I don't really know if he ever got to listen to it, but I listened to it a lot, and I know he was really excited about it, and I know he would have loved it. So there's one song on it that kind of stood out to me a little bit. And it kind of reminded me of Orfee in a lot of ways, kind of in the way that he was able to just really like I said, kind of just enjoy the more simple aspects in life. I mean, sometimes a kind of a crazy world, and how just like appreciating simple things can be like a real joy. And he was so good at doing that, reminding us all to do that. So I'm gonna read just the first verse from this song to you, because I don't know, I think Orfee would have liked it, and I think it kind of, you know, speaks to him a little bit. The song's called Black Plums. As we all know, Orfee loves watermelons, so let's just imagine that whenever it says black plums, we're actually talking about watermelons. So, this is read in memory of Orfee, a real one. The realest one I think I've ever met. Black plums getting fatter every summer. Half us in the cabinet getting sadder every upper. Classic outdoorsmen scratching panic on the cave walls. Strays out front, but plums like baseballs. Plucked from the arms of the earth. Hellfire at the school. How are you on about some garden dessert? I'm in the cradle of craters, same as your boot in the trench, defending everything from something, plum juice on my chin. Good in whatever the newest abandoned shoe in his web, to hit that sticky thread or sled into a foot of cement. For every bullet I have caught in my teeth, I earn the privilege of a trip to be in awe of the tree. 100 years in the future, I bet some photo exists of some historic moment happening somewhere close to the crib. Maybe some heavenly zealot yelling and wielding a piece. And there I am in the back enjoying that seasonal treat. Oblivious and doing my version of smelling a rose. Stupid look on my face, I am never in vogue. I was probably in my head about the essence of hope, taking a second to effectively connect with the whole. Look, ever since a kid, invisibility important, I've been dipping out the lobby, body painted brick and mortar, trying to pick up on a pattern in the numbers, like black plums getting fatter every summer. Dorothy.
I'll be really brief. I wasn't planning to speak, so I probably won't be very eloquent, but I think a lot of the stories that we've heard highlight something about Orfee that's worth saying concretely, which is that he really paid attention to people, which is interesting for someone who's so cool to like pay attention to you. But he would look for the ways that he could connect with you as a person. And, you know, for Jack, that was music. For me, it was like mushrooms and bugs, and in particular snakes. And he would look for the things that he could teach you and the things that he could learn from you. And he would like persist at that with you. And our text chain, I've looked back at it a couple times, of like pictures of mushrooms and snakes and all the random things that he would see. And he knew I was interested in it, and so he would always share it to me. And he had a concern for the wildlife, for the living things at Blandy that is like unduplicated, even in this crowd of people who really, really care about living things. He was always the first to reach out when there was a beautiful moth that was in a dangerous spot, or a snake that was injured with the mowing equipment. It just really struck me how deeply he cared about life and people.
All right, I'm ready. I probably could have winged this, but there was this one part where I did one screwed up. Yeah, like as Chris, characterized Orfee as, his service to the land here. Yeah, he set the standard. He elevated the bar. He set a new standard that is probably, I don't know that we can meet it, but certain things that he did now bother me to tell me to do something. So it goes. So I'm probably not going to say much that isn't too different from anybody else. But the supervisor, supervisee, strange relationship to some extent, not natural. You kind of have to erect some amount of barriers to manage the relationship, keep it professional, but Orfee no doubt defies that. He has none of that. He was, as we've all said, uniquely himself. He was sure to let you know exactly what that meant. And as we've all are talking, we're all, thinking of those, unique things and those little things that he had strong convictions and coveted certain things. We all have those examples in our mind. But, it didn't mean that he was selfish in the expression of it. He was actually, as we know, extremely generous, and I always felt very fortunate whenever I was on the receiving end, especially the watermelons, just because, you know, when somebody puts so much time and it's such a special thing to them, it's always remarkable when they're willing to give it away so freely. Orfee was, you know, as he left his mark here, you know, he quickly established himself, established his fastidious aesthetic around the property. No task is small. Master the basics, you may master yourself. Beyond mowing and trimming, he grew fond of certain trees, certain areas, and we certainly can't honor his memory in every single facet. There are certain ways we're planning to do that. So first he had the plot, you know, one of his watermelon plots was down in the community garden. So he spent a lot of time there. So the plan is to dedicate that space to his memory and keep trying to grow watermelons there and anything else to share internally, but hopefully just to like donate to. We got some stuff going there. I kind of struggled through it this spring, but we have some watermelons going in there, among other things. And then, you know, we hope to dedicate a tree. Some of the trees, you know, Maggie talked about his, you know, deep care of living things, and it manifests in different ways. Not just like the ones that are big, healthy, and beautiful, but ones that are kind of teetering or struggling. You know, I don't know what to make of those if they're future, so I wouldn't want to tag, you know, one that's declining in his memory. But we did receive a tree from Valerie that he had potted up. It looked like a purchased plant, and I guess I learned today that it's a Japanese flowering cherry. He argued for some Yoshino cherries to be planted in this one space that he tended off the staff quarters lot. But we'll plant that this fall, not right now, and have it dedicated to his memory at that time. And we're kind of working on the text for a placard, but here's kind of what we have right now. Maybe it will evolve furthermore. With gratitude, the tree. This tree is dedicated to Orfee Ross, whose resilience, dedication, and generosity left a lasting mark on the Blandy community and landscape. To have known him is to have loved him and learned from him. Yeah, so to be continued there. This is all to say that his memory and imprint here will live on. We're compelled to do so. And as I was writing this kind of part where I needed memory, or better memory, some verse came to me. From Wyatt's Hill to the farmhouse, from Blandy Henge to the western reaches of Dogwood Lane, Orfee, you move and dwell across this rich landscape. Rich in those who came before, those here now. In pain and pleasure, these spirits rise in the mist. Settle in the dew, journey through the waters, stir in the sun, all on their way, their own way to Magnolia Mountain. Orfee, may a small part of you continue to dwell in this land that he came to cherish.
That's really hard to follow. Uh-oh. I was fortunate enough to share a daily practice with Orfee that came with working on the grounds here at Blandy. Okay, so, and this was the ritual. Friday, 4:30, Handy Mart, beers and Gatorade. So I would just run into Orfee, and we began a friendship because we shared a similar pastime and ways of making a living, and we would meet and we would talk about string trimmers, poetry, Virginia, poetry, you name it. And it was always like a little embarrassing, like, yes, the six-pack is all for me. But that grew into a deep friendship with Orfee and my husband, and I will say that for somebody who was not able to be here as long as we all hoped he would be, he led life the way he wanted to. He was a brilliant, brilliant human being and Renaissance man, and we would often talk about how fortunate we felt to have landed in a place that allowed us to have the quietude to process the plight of being a human being in these changing times, and so much of the practice of coming to grips with that was interacting with nature on a daily basis. And that is something that I know everyone who works on the grounds here at Blandy, all of the people who work in the academic sector, or all of the people who hold all of us together, all of the administrative people, that is the thing that is so incredibly irreplaceable about this place. And I wouldn't have known Orfee if I wasn't here. And so I feel so grateful that we've been able to all be here together in the time that we have. And he was truly an unconquerable spirit, and that left something with every single one of us here, and I'm so thankful for that.
Anybody else?
Yeah, you know what, I'll say a couple things. I'd be remiss if I missed this chance. My name's Peter Reed. I grew up here in Clark County most of my life. And I met Orfee like 2014. I was pretty fresh out of the Marines, and I was a pretty hard dude. I had a hard heart. And I met, I left a long post online, and I don't want to repeat that, but I met him at a party, not a party, but a friend's house, and he was wearing a t-shirt of an obscure underground hip hop band from New York, and I was like, oh, I'm a big fan, and he really didn't believe me, straight up. He was like, no, they're very obscure, you don't know who they are, and I was rattling off songs and stuff, so he was really impressed that I knew this group. But luckily I had an older brother that got me into all the good music, and yeah, it was just history from there. We fell right into a routine. I'd go over to his house every Friday, and we'd hang out for either an hour, 2 hours, the whole night. We'd listen to music, we'd play video games, and I'm so grateful that he met his family here. And everything you guys have said up to this point is just so spot on about him. And I moved away to Arizona in 2019, and I talk to him once in a while, but not as often as I'd like to. And I'm just so glad that he had you guys here for him. I can't express enough, like many of you know, what a selfless person he was. He truly was just always thinking of others and never himself. Within the first year of knowing him, like I said online, he was wearing a shirt one day that I really liked, and I said, man, I really like that shirt. And he immediately peeled it off his back and gave it to me right there. And the shirt is hanging up back there, by the way, anyone wants to look at it. It just says meh on the front. It really spoke to me at the time, and I was grateful that he gave it to me. That's why I took it from him. His knowledge of music cannot be understated. I would never even come close to his level of knowledge. And I was never really that into jazz, which is really his thing. But he did turn me on to Art Tatum and a few others that I did like. And then I'd say the other thing that Orfee really influenced me was, like many of you said, his appreciation for all forms of life. Over the last couple years, I've noticed that I don't even like to kill the smallest insect, even if it's in my house, like an ant, a cockroach. I just have this propensity now to scoop it up and take it outside, and I wholly attribute that to Orfee. He loved his cats, and I loved my cats, and to this day I have a cat that's like a child to me because I never had kids, and I think to some effect that was the same for Orfee. And I'm so grateful that he had you guys in these last several years, and I just want to really thank everyone that had a part in putting this on, and all the kind words that were said before me. This has bringing me much solace, and this has just been really great. So, thank you.
Well, I'm Shane. I work with Orfee through two different jobs. We were friends for about probably a decade or more, and we just instantly bonded. I'm quiet, and he was super like he would talk to everybody. So that's how we became friends. He was my voice. Even at jobs, he would like speak up for me and like give me new tools or whatever I needed. Like it was always. But we've been great friends for a couple decades. I didn't really have anything to say other than but I'm really mourning. He's one of the best friends I've ever had. I've like a lot of funny like memories together. But we worked at Bear Chase. We worked at C2 Management, and Orfee was always one of my best friends. He was just sitting in my house like a couple months ago, just chilling and talking about stuff. But he loved his cats like I do. And, I don't know what else to say. I just miss the guy. He's one of my best friends I've ever had. Love him. I wanted to say something.
Anybody else? So, I guess I'd like to close this part of celebration of Orfee by thanking everyone. All of you made this possible, and thank you so much for all this delicious food. I mean, look at all this. This is incredible. You would have plates heaped up in front of him if he was here, guaranteed. And also thank you to everybody who was involved in beautifying the space as well as getting everything set up today. And it was a group effort, and it looks beautiful. I'd like to recognize all of our staff and friends that are here in a way that sent in photos of Orfee that are found on the photo board in the back. Maggie and Megan, you two did a wonderful job selecting and presenting those photos up there, so I thank you. Next, I'd like to thank Jack for the music. Valerie brought one of his albums or a few of his albums here to be played, but I gave the task to Jack to be in charge of music since he knew so much more about it than I did. I could not jive with Orfee's music. We could get into about anything else, but he tried to get me into it, and I just would fuzz over. But he tried very hard several times. So Jack, thank you so much for providing that. And then I mentioned it quickly during the first part when I was talking. His gators out here. Come on now. So Maggie got a decal made. This Orphee's Gator in John Deere yellow. That's on there. So. And most of the people that visit here, community garden, staff members, dog walkers, met Orfee on that machine. And we think that for the years and years coming, I'll keep her going. It'll keep going around and doing work, beautiful things around this property as she would have done. So feel free to stay and conversate as long as you'd like this evening. But I'd just like to finish up by saying, please drive safe when heading home, and thank you all again for being here. Thank you.